Welcome back again to Brave New Digital Classroom, Chapter 7, Social Networking. We're very fortunate to have a PhD candidate from the University of California at Davis, Gabriel Guillén, who's going to talk to us about his work in tandem learning and social networking, in particular with L2 learners of Spanish. So, Gabriel, talk to us a little bit. Tell us, what is tandem learning? I think we need a definition that we can work with. And why is tandem learning potentially important for second language learning?
Okay, so tandem is actually very old and very simple, but it is not so popular, at least in the US, as a concept. So it happens when two people of different native languages are helping each other learn the target language. For example, I learn English with you, I improve my English with you, and you improve your Spanish with me. And we give feedback to each other. So I think tandem goes really well with implicit learning or explicit learning. It goes really well with focus on form or focus on meaning. It goes well with interaction or reflection about language learning. So why is it useful? Well, there is a decent amount of literature about it. I think it seems to work for something very important, our oral interaction skill. So we could say fluency, we could say grammar accuracy, we could say even vocabulary, maybe perhaps frequent collocations. And also, it seems to work for intercultural competence. So I like classroom learning, and we are language students, we are language instructors, and we gain a lot by being in the comfort zone of the classroom, but we are also missing something. I think students need to face the culture shock. They need to get out of the comfort zone. They need to get out of the bubble that the classroom represents. They need to interact with people from other cultures. So I think, paraphrasing Claire Krams, that says tandem learning is like technology. It does not replace going abroad, but it could be a good preparation, a good scaffolding for going abroad. She talks about technology, we could talk about tandem learning in the same manner.
Now, most of the examples you've given us for tandem learning are in the context of face-to-face learning. But is there a good fit with tandem learning and technology?
Yeah, well, I really like face-to-face tandems, but it is very difficult to find a tandem depending on the language or your location. So using CMC, we can reach millions of native speakers. We can even reach language classrooms. So we can develop a strong network. We can save time. We can save money. We can get out, again, we can get out of our comfort zone. And so yes, I think that they fit like a glove with tandem learning.
It seems to me too that when we're talking about tandem learning, that it assumes as an underpinning, a theoretical underpinning, something that in the second language acquisition field is talked about a lot, which is autonomous learning. Mm-hmm. So maybe you could talk to us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And actually, tandems are supposed to work under two principles: the principle of autonomy and the principle of reciprocity, according to Brammer's 1997. So students are in control and students are helping each other. For example, to give you an example, they have to spend the same amount of time in English and Spanish.
So again, maybe you could explain just a little bit more about what is autonomous? Why do we use the word autonomous?
Yeah, I think autonomous is a tricky concept. It's, for example, trying to see how we learn best, or trying to know what kind of activities are good for us. It is also making long-term plans. It is being a lifelong learner. So if we talk about tandems with our students, we are not talking about self-instruction. We are talking about supporting the autonomy of our students. We are talking about supervising tandems. We are talking about designing activities that trigger actual collaboration, like Robert O'Dowd and Paige Ware said back in 2009. Also, I think in the past, instructors tend to organize tandems, but I think there is there is an opportunity to let the students organize the tandem, find the tandem. I think it could be more autonomous, could be more durable, it could be more sustainable, and of course less time-consuming for instructors.
So how does technology fit in here with autonomous learning?
Well, I think, well, as you say, there is no technology, there are technologies, plural. So, for example, books are technology, and we know of people who have learned languages using books. So now we have even more opportunities for these people. You know, they can learn languages using LiveMocha, a website. And this is great for them, and this is maybe, I don't know, 1% of students, but most of us, let's say 99% of students, need guides, need guidance. So I think using technology, instructors can really take classroom learning to the extreme. They can expand the class. I think using the Warsaw framework, as we talked before, I think we are now facing a new era, the social computer-assisted language learning era. So it is not anymore about you and the computer, it's about you as a student and another student talking, interacting, learning together using the computer.
How would you explain the incredible explosion and popularity of social networks? Clearly there's some potential here for our field, second language learning, but there also are some dangers involved with social networking.
It's very attractive, it's free. So, and I think it's a place for authentic and meaningful communication. We can talk and talk for hours, we can give and receive feedback, we can develop a strong learning network for free. But there are issues, or at least potential issues. For example, lack of content, or lack of activities that trigger communication, or sometimes poor feedback from students. Mm-hmm. Students tend to get frustrated. Also, tandems sometimes are weak, are superficial, they don't last. I think these networks are very radial. They're very radial. But I think we need thicker, stronger, triangular networks. I know student B knows student C, I know student C. More like your family or your group of friends, or even a classroom. I think we need attachment, we need feedback. I really like this quote by Robert Frost, you know that I think he said, writing free verse is like playing tennis with the net down. And I think sometimes students are playing, having fun with the net down. And I think more goals, more guidance, more structure, maybe sequential instruction could help them get their goals.
Now, what about attrition with social networking? We all know the stories that people log on to a social networking site, work for maybe a few days, and then boom, they disappear. This might have even happened in your own research. So tell us a little bit about that, your thoughts on that.
That's a reality from my own experience and reading the literature, and I think we can do two things. First, as Robert O'Dowd said, I think we need to include tandem learning in the core of the curriculum, as we have talked before. Also, we could have more conversations between developers and SLA experts. We need theory, we need practice.
It sounds very much as if you're predicting for the future that in addition to CALL, computer-assisted language learning, that we're going to be developing something that we could call social CALL. Do you feel that's going to be a significant part of the field as it develops in the future?
Yes. I have the feeling that it is going to be very important, but we cannot take it for granted. As we say and say again, we need theory, we need practice, we need to play, but we also need to raise the net.
Thank you, Gabriel, for sharing these insights, for sharing your research. It's, as you say, playing tennis with the net down. It's an area that we're exploring as teachers, but social networking is definitely here to stay, and we need to learn how to harness it. and what to do with it. Thank you for joining us with this 7th chapter section of Brave New Digital Classroom.